All right. So this is our second session on talking about meaning and purpose and how we can live a meaningful life. And so I wanted to just have this discussion. And so we've already started with the first one, just introducing that topic. And now I want to kind of dive into what does this look like as Christians and telling a good Christian story. So, all right. Sound
Cool.
good?
Yeah.
So just, quickly to recap, one thing that we talked about last time is just that we are meaning motivated creatures. And if we don't feel like we have meaning, we give up. Now, the cool thing was we did kind of like a meaning tank survey, and you guys got pretty full tanks. Like, that makes me happy. You feel like you're doing meaningful work. You feel like you're working at a place that's doing something that matters. Mm-hmm. And that was encouraging because that's not everybody. There's, a lot of people are struggling to what am I doing? Everything I'm doing is being taken over by AI. No one sees what I'm doing. No one cares. So that's a big deal. What I want to talk about today is if this is true, that we are motivated by meaning, I don't think the Christian church always does a good job telling a meaningful story, like a compelling story. I think a lot of people we're answering questions people are not asking today. And so I want to talk about that. And I think sometimes we tell a story that's not coherent. Did we talk about this before? Did you guys ever see the TV show Lost?
I haven't. I've been meaning to watch it. But
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I hear it's good.
Okay. Can I spoil some of it or no? Do you want me to?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Will you ever get to it?
Who knows?
Okay. Well, my wife is a loyalist. When she starts a TV show, she will watch it to the end, no matter how bad it is. I will give up. Mm-hmm. But this is one I actually watched, and it's so basically the storyline is, these people that have a plane crash on a mysterious island that's got all these unusual properties and really good acting, compelling characters, and every episode's like a flashback and a flash forward, and you're trying to figure out all the mysterious qualities of the island. It was a place of government experiments and projects, and all these things happen. And for the most part, I was basically lost. I was like, what? I don't understand the storyline. I don't know where this is going. I don't understand what the point of this is. But the writers, if you were kind of following along when this movie or this TV show just came out, they would say, it's all going to come together in the end.
Yes.
Just stick together.
Mm-hmm. Don't spoil the end for me, though.
Okay.
Are you going to? The point that it all comes together. Should I plug my ears?
Plug your ears. It doesn't really come together. And so at the end, you have this idea that does it really come together? And I think that's kind of what happens with the Christian church is that we're telling a story that can be very disjointed, and the ending doesn't always come together. Sometimes we give this impression that you have this earthly life where you have all these earthly things that go on. You have marriage and family and stuff and suffering. And you're like, how does this all make sense? How does suffering make sense? Why am I here? And then a lot of times I think people have this idea that, well, the only real point of life is to die and go to heaven. And when you die and go to heaven, I've talked to a lot of people. I think, well, I'm not going to know anyone in heaven. I'm not going to remember my life in heaven. It's going to be a non-material existence. It's going to be an endless church service. And they have I don't know have you heard any of these ideas?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And so if people have this impression, first of all, I don't think that's true. Mm-hmm. It's not biblical, and it's not compelling. It's not meaningful. It's like we're telling people that our life is basically like living on the Titanic, and we know the Titanic is going down, and so we're not enjoying our time on the Titanic. We're just trying to get close to the life raft. Mm-hmm. So when this world goes down, we can jump to the life raft of Jesus and float away to our heavenly home. Doesn't sound that exciting.
Right.
So what do you think, Matt? Does that resonate with you? Do you hear people talk like that? Do you think people think that's the Christian story?
Yeah. I think the way that we really sometimes fail on this topic is when it comes to applying the gospel to the challenges that we actually face.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think So for anyone who's listening that doesn't know, Ben and I worked together on the teen group nights that we had this past school year. And one thing that I think we did very well was that we chose topics that were immediately relevant to the teenagers. And I think sometimes what I heard, or at least the impression I got growing up, was like, you're a Christian, so everything's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, it's not. Well, you're a Christian, so at least when you die, you're going to go to heaven. All right. Get me out of here.
Yeah, let's
like,
get on with
me
it.
up,
Let's
you know?
get on with it.
Okay, then we're done, I guess. But like, what about you're a Christian, so here's some helpful things to like actually solve the problems that you're facing right now. And it was like that part was missing.
Yep.
And I think that's probably fed largely from the fact, or by the fact, that we don't like to share our problems.
Okay.
So it's like, rather than addressing my problems, at least when I die, I'm going to go to heaven. And so I'm not going to try to fix anything now.
Yeah. And or that the gospel and our faith can't fix them. Like, let's give that all over to the therapist, as good as that is, or the doctor or other people. Like, we don't let our faith into those areas because Christianity is only about saving our souls.
Yeah.
And everything else is kind of like somebody else's business. But as long as we save our soul, as long as people believe in and that's all that really matters. But everything else is meaningless.
Yeah, it's like we're going to go to heaven eventually, so it's okay if we suffer some hell now. It's like, well, we're going to suffer, but we'll be a lot more effective as Christians here and now if we kind of get a grip on some of our own problems, and then we can help other people with their problems. Like, that's a big part of evangelism, is helping people with their problems.
Yep. And if go back to what we talked about last time, if that's the story you tell, that our faith is only helpful the day you die, like an life insurance policy, but not really helpful up until that time, or it's only about, saving your soul so that when you die, you go to heaven, then either our life is meaningless or our faith is meaningless or Christianity is meaningless. And then it's not motivating. It's not engaging. It's not helpful. I think that's why we can shrug our shoulders at it. We think, so I think one way to solve that problem is say what you're saying, make it practical, make it, how does it lead me to live a different life right now? I think another way is to have a better understanding of what the Bible actually says about the life to come, and then play it backwards. So we say this almost every week when we confess the Nicene Creed. We say, we believe in the resurrection of the body and the life of the world to come. But almost no Christians I know actually think about that and believe that. And what I think is going to happen, I think there's a lot of Bible verses that talk about this, is that in the life to come, obviously we're going to have a body. We're going to have a real body. We're going to have a real job. We're going to have real work to do. We're going to have real interactions with our family and friends. And how we experience that life to come has a lot to do with how we live our life right now. And so Paul talks about this. He says in Romans 8, creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom of the glory of the children of God. So creation is going to be set free. So that connects this creation that we can see out our window right now with what's going to come. Right now, it's in bondage. That's why there's mosquitoes and disease and death and problems. But I don't know. Do you guys like getting out into nature? I mean, you're a fisherman.
Yes.
Yes. Going outside.
I do.
Yes.
Believe it or not.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and we love so many things about this world. We love music. We love friends. We love games. We love work. What we don't love is the crap that gets in the way. The disease, the death, the pain, the suffering, the loss. And that's what is going to be gone. And so I think if we can help people imagine the life to come like this, and that's what the prophets did. They could see a vision of this world when it be set free. And that would give them ability to get through the hard stuff because they know it's going to be better, but also to do what they can right now to make it a heavenly place on earth. And so I think that's just one way to make this a more meaningful story. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you think people already know that? Do you think people don't know that? Do you think it matters? Do you see how it could matter?
I think people don't know that a lot of times when we talk about heaven, and we've talked about this before,
right.
but like this like nebulous idea of like the clouds and
right.
and that's just not it. So I think, as a church, to be able to instruct people about what the Bible teaches about the world to come
mm-hmm.
would be helpful.
Yeah.
So that it isn't just, and listen, I don't know what's going to happen in heaven. I know that there's going to be no tears and all that stuff, and that's going to be great. But I've said to you guys before, I'm like, probably not going to be any drama, right? Like,
right.
How do you exist without, that's because that's all we know. In other
right.
words, we only know death.
Right.
We only know
right.
like that these are true
mm-hmm.
things that are going to happen to everybody. We know that suffering, everybody at some point in their life is going to suffer for some reason or another. It's hard to fathom a world where that doesn't happen.
Because so much of our life is solving problems.
Right. So and that's what I mean when I say drama, like there's going to be, to me, that's like, there's no problem solving. Like, are we just, I don't
mm-hmm.
know what that's going to look like. I'm not afraid of it, but
right.
I'm like,
Well, I think that is the picture that the best day when you're still learning and growing and challenging yourself. And I think there's going to be room for growth, room for challenge, room for cultivating and creating. But it's not going to be problems to solve. I guess the big part for me is to remember it wasn't the devil who created our bodies and pleasure and music and games and dogs and all, our favorite things. It was God who created those things. It was the devil who tainted that and ruined that and brought evil into the world. And so when we get connected to the best things about our created world, we're getting connected to God. And that gives us a vision of a meaningful life. So, I think the best things that you enjoy, God made those, and he's going to make them new again. And I think if we can tell that story, we can help people see that their progress in this world, their growth, the differences that they're making, that comes from God. That's a part of why God designed us. It's not separate. And if we unfortunately, we tell a story that's a lot more like Plato. Plato would tell the story, and ancient Greeks believed that the material world is bad. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we need to go to the immaterial heaven up there. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's more of the story that we tell. It's not a meaningful story. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking deeply over there, Matt.
Maybe.
Okay.
I was just thinking about how if you think that your whole goal is just like to make it out on the ship, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like we talk a lot about people who like maybe go through confirmation,
mm-hmm.
And then they kind of just like stop going to church
mm-hmm.
or whatever. And there could be a number of reasons for that. But I think people are not informed on what their purpose is.
Right.
So it's just like, it's holding that get out of jail free card. Mm-hmm. It's like, I just have to hold this card for 70 years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I show up to church a couple times and like, yes, I believe.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's my ticket. I think that's, I think that's why people they're comfortable or they're able to do that because they don't see a benefit of like, if I could go to church quarterly
mm-hmm.
rather than weekly and we're all going to the same place.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then you tell me, I shouldn't do these things, but like if they're not really affecting anybody and we're all going to the same place.
Right. Why go? That's what I mean. It's not a compelling story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think before we hear God say, believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, we have to remember his first command was to rule over creation and to imitate him. We're made in his image. So be fruitful and multiply, rule over creation. And so when God created the world, he gave us work to do. He gave us good things to do, to cultivate, to make to multiply, to make this world, fill this world. And he didn't just say, believe so when you die, you go to heaven. The reason Jesus came into the world is so that we really can do what he told us to do in the beginning. In Jesus, in part, we can fill the world, take control of the world, rule the world in a way that makes it flourish. And then when the world is made new, we'll be able to fully do this. We won't get in our way. There won't be the drama. We'll be able to do the things we were originally created to do. So it isn't just a get out of jail free card. It is an empowerment to live a life that really cares about other people, that makes the best of the stuff he's given us to do. I don't really like gardening. I know some people like the garden. I've tried. I just don't. But I think it is a neat picture of like keeping these plants alive and watering them and caring for them and cultivating them. And what would that be like if you didn't have to pull the weeds? And sin is like the weeds of the garden. How much more could you make that garden flourish without the weeds? And so that's kind of what we are supposed to be doing, is cultivating this world, and whatever that means, creating music, creating buildings, creating cultures, art, gardening, all that kind of stuff without the weeds. And it's just because of sin, there's weeds. And so we should still be doing those things, creating and producing and all that stuff, but we look forward to the day when there's not going to be the stuff that gets in the way.
So here's the question, I guess. If somebody were to come to you, they listen to this podcast or your class or something, and they said, like, I don't feel like my life has purpose. Like, I am Christian.
Right.
I understand that we're saved.
Yeah.
I feel right now I'm just sort of stuck. I feel like my job doesn't give me a lot of purpose. I don't have any hobbies that give me purpose. My relationships they're okay. My family relationship is a little toxic, but like I visit them, just like everything feels not terrible, but it's just average. Like,
you're bored.
You're bored. There's just kind of like, I can exist like this, but how do I find purpose? How do I, spread wings and fly, sort of?
Right. So in the weeks to come, we'll get really granular at this. Like, what does it actually look like? Today, I just wanted to say, like, you are part of a purposeful story. If you believe that God is telling a story, that he's in charge of it, that he's created a world that you can find purpose in, that's at least a good foundation. But if I'm talking to an individual, Viktor Frankl would say there was 3 sources of meaning, 3 ways that you can respond to life. And he would say, you need to just be open to responding moment by moment instead of trying to figure out, like, what's the great purpose of my life? That can be hard to figure out. What's the ultimate meaning? Well, Christians would say ultimate meaning, is to walk with God and be with God forever. But it's responding in the moment. And the 3 ways to respond in the moment is to do a good deed. So that would be giving a cup of cold water to one of these little ones, Jesus says. So thinking about somebody else. How do you respond to other people? How do you care for the needs of other people? So that would be the first thing, doing something for somebody else. The second thing he would say would be experiencing something beautiful. So art, music, how meaningful is, like, you listen to you were talking about, what was that group, your favorite group from Canada?
Oh, City and Color. Yeah.
City and Color, like, you're there, like, if you're at that concert and if somebody said, I just feel so empty. Well, how could you feel empty when you are experiencing somebody perform like that? And he would say, experiencing art or music or some beautiful nature or a person. So love, experiencing love. And the third thing is your attitude to unavoidable suffering. So maybe that person is put in a crappy situation. How are you going to respond? Are you going to be a victim? Are you going to mope? Are you going to whine? you're not going to find any meaning in that. But can you be the kind of person that everybody wants to be around because you bring your best to your job, how you respond? So that's what he said. He said, even when we were in the concentration camp in Auschwitz, how we responded to our guards and didn't give in to their brutality and their hatred and their evil, how we responded gave a lot of meaning to our lives. So that's what he would say. Now, from a Christian perspective, I think what makes this even more important is you can say to do a deed in Jesus' name, that we work for the Lord, that we do it for his glory, to experience great music or art or a person, knowing that God created those things. God created a middle C. He created this, that we have ears that can absorb great music, or a tongue that can absorb and appreciate great food, and all those kinds of things, a great relationship. And then to be able to suffer, seeing that as a way that God is purifying us, that God is disciplining us, that God is challenging us, that God is growing us, and to see that God is at work in our suffering. So I think you can take his three sources of meaning and look at it from a Christian perspective and have an eternal, lasting meaning. So that's what I would do. I would try to, and now what Viktor Frankl would do is, like, he was really interested in people who were on the verge of committing suicide. Like, that was his kind of main group of people that he would work with. And he would often ask them, like, why haven't you done it yet? Why haven't you committed suicide yet? And whenever they would say, like, well, I have these, I still have this, my mom is still alive and I wouldn't want to hurt her, make her go through that. Like, okay, tell me about your mom and let's talk about your mom. And so let's talk about that meaningful relationship. So I don't know, what do you think, Matt, as you hear that?
Yeah. Let's see. Boy, a couple thoughts here. What would you say to someone who just hypothetically received an unwanted tax bill in the mail from the city of Milwaukee? Unavoidable suffering. Mm-hmm. What would be the proper way for said person to handle that situation?
Yeah. Well, you hypothetically, no kidding. Taxes are that unavoidable suffering, right? Where you get this, and what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do, right? Go to jail and fight it?
Can't control it, but you can control your response to it, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, like, all right.
Fits of rage, throwing things,
right.
yelling.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Temper tantrum. Yeah. It would. You could do that, or I do think, like, if you look at it from this perspective, it does give you, I think, some motivation. Like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to exercise this, like exercise my attitude, that I don't have to be a victim and the victimhood mentality. Because, like, every villain in every movie and every biblical story is basically somebody who gets bitter. Things aren't going my way. I'm not getting what I deserve. They turn into Cain. I deserve to take somebody else's life or take somebody's money or take somebody's power because things aren't going my way. And that's a very dangerous place to be. So you could either go that route, things aren't going my way, so I deserve to get back or get even or do whatever I have to do or have a temper tantrum. Or I could say, this is an opportunity for me to rise above my circumstances and believe that God is going to provide for me, that I can be an example, all those things. So what do you choose?
Be thankful that you have money to pay the tax
bill. That you got a home. Yeah, you could do it that way.
Typically, not me, but the person I'm referring to just yells and screams. But okay, so then my other thought was, the way you have this laid out is that maybe instead of looking for, like, what is my purpose in life?
Right.
Look for day-to-day, moment-to-moment, how do I respond in the most meaningful way?
Right.
And I just thought, why is it that it seems like when we talk about purpose, we always, like, narrow it down to, like, one grand thing.
Right. He fought against that.
Right.
Like, I'm going to go to college to find my purpose. And colleges market it that way too. Like, come here, find your purpose, find your passion.
Right.
Like, yeah, maybe. But why do we think about it that way? Because I've never heard, I would say, or I've almost never heard anyone ever say, like, maybe your life doesn't have just one purpose, but you should find purpose in the day-to-day.
Right. I think it's a very biblical idea, but that was a uniquely Viktor Frankl thing. And I thought because he believed that you have to have meaning or sense of meaning to stay motivated, he didn't want to put all his eggs in that one basket, that it had to be based on my circumstances. Because sometimes he taught this and ran a whole psych ward based on these principles, but it was still kind of theory. Then he's a neuroscientist, done brain surgery. He's a psychiatrist. He's a published author, all these things. And then him and his wife get separated. He gets put in a concentration camp. His dad is dying of starvation and pneumonia in the concentration camp. He snuck in a vial of morphine. And so he saw meaning, not in his grand purpose that he's all these other things, but that he could give his dad a little relief before he died with sneaking that in. So he really believed it was very important to just see that life is every day kind of handing you an opportunity. And I think that's a very biblical idea. Jesus tells a parable of the talents, that we should kind of look at God as a manager of this whole world. He owns the whole world, and he has given us a little plot of land to take care of. And how are we going to respond to that plot of land? How are we going to respond to the opportunities that he puts in front of us? And so the other is interesting. Another philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, he was an existentialist who didn't believe in God, born in the same year of Viktor Frankl, 1905. He believed you did have to create your own meaning. You had to find this one purpose that you had to fulfill, and it was up to you because there was no God and there was no meaning, but you had to figure it out on yourself. You had to create it. You had to create your own morals. You had to create your own path. And that was kind of also, Friedrich Nietzsche would talk about that. Like there is no purpose, there's no God, and so it's all about you paving your own way. Now sometimes I think, I hear Christians saying, you have this one calling, you got to find your one purpose, and I think that can also be debilitating. I think I think God does call us to opportunities. He called Moses and he calls Elijah to do these things, but I think we need to look at that at every moment, every day. There's a call on our life.
Find meaning in the mundane, even.
Yes.
Like cooking dinner for your family, which is my most favorite activity on the face of the earth, right? Yeah. But yeah, so it doesn't have to be some grand, giant thing that you're doing, your purpose, your meaning. It can be just the day-to-day, minute to minute.
What I love is, so in Colossians chapter 3, Paul's writing, and he's talking to slaves. Now, slavery was a institution that was all over the Roman Empire. It was like, I don't know, some statistics are like over 50% of the population was slaves. Whenever the Rome would conquer a new territory, basically all the people they would conquer would be slaves, or you had slave labor. So it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. And so other parts of Scripture condemn slavery, but there were some people who were stuck in either debt slavery or for whatever reason. And Paul had a way of saying you could still find meaning if you're stuck in slavery. He said, slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, and do it not only when their eye is on you, and to curry their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Now, anyone who does wrong will be repaid for their wrongs. And I think he's talking about the slave masters who were oppressing them. And there is no favoritism. So Paul had a way of saying, even if you're a slave, even if you're put in a crappy, meaningless, stupid position, you can still work at it with all your might. And Viktor Frankl said that a lot too. He says, he says, if there are cases where the actual occupation does not allow a sense of fulfillment to arise, the fault is in the person, not in the work.
Ooh,
Yikes.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that's
it
tough.
is tough.
I mean, how would we respond? How do you respond if you're in, in slavery, if you are a slave, or if you
Right.
are in a concentration camp.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. And I'd like to be able to say,
Right.
oh, yeah, I agree. I can get behind that. But
Right.
that's not easy.
It's not easy. But it gives you hope to say that you can rise above your circumstance. And I think we do admire people who are, you know, maybe are in an accident or quadriplegic, or they're put in a situation where they are in an unavoidable suffering. And we've seen people who rise above and who don't play the pity party, who respond and work hard at what they're doing. And a lot of times, the cool thing in the United States is that if you do work hard in a mundane job and you do good work, people are going to notice, and you are going to get new opportunities. And I think the Lord opens up new opportunities. If you're faithful in small things, you're going to be faithful in bigger things. But yeah, I think that's really important.
Okay, so here's the balance I can never strike, though.
Okay.
Is what it's really important to have hope in the future.
Right.
But if you think to yourself, boy, things could be better.
Yeah.
Now I'm just angry that they're not. Like if you're in a situation,
Okay.
be like, well, I know things have the ability to get better, so I'm going to work as hard as I can, or I'm going to have a good attitude about this.
Sure.
But then you go, wait a sec. Things could be better. I don't have to be here, and then you just get frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, how do you balance those two items?
Yeah, I think you do the best that you can in the situation that you're in, and that's like the day by day thing. And then you pray that the Lord continues to open up opportunities and continues to, it's that tension between doing the best with today. I think that's why there's so much emphasis in the scriptures of praying, Lord, give us today our daily bread. Like there's just this encouragement to live in the moment, to be thankful in the moment, to be able to see blessings in the moment, the apostles in jail are praising God that they were considered worthy of suffering for his name. And just like that kind of.
I'm terrible. I just feel like there's no way, man.
So,
yikes.
But I think that's part of being a Christian, because our whole life is like that. You think ultimately in the renewed world, it is going to be better. And so how can you appreciate the now and realize that a lot of it's the not yet?
Yeah.
And so to live in that tension, to be able to be thankful for the good that's now, but then to be hopeful. I mean, just the opposite. If there's no hope for a better future, you totally give up in the present. Like, well, why do I even try? It's not going to lead anywhere positive anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the fact that there is a better future can motivate us to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's super hard, because so many times I'm like, oh man, like we're making progress on this maybe here at church, or I've been making personal progress on something I've been working on, and then you kind of jolted from reality. You come back to the same maybe bad habits or the same interactions with people that frustrate you, and you go, like I am better than this.
Yeah.
Either the way I responded, or like, oh, I don't want to have to deal with this again,
Yeah.
And it feels like I'm not getting better. I'm not like going anywhere. I'm still stuck right where I was.
Yeah. For me, this is not really necessarily part of this topic or this work. I really like the idea of flow. I don't know if you heard of like finding flow. Like when you're doing something, you're totally absorbed in the work.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think it's usually not necessarily the result of the work. Like, yeah, once you're done and you get the award or get the paycheck or get the accolade or get the praise, that's great. But really what we love the most is like in the moment doing the work. And if you can appreciate that process. So I think that if you can find a way to enjoy what you're doing in the moment and that you're doing it for the Lord, that's how you find purpose, not necessarily the purpose in the result or where it's going, or because, yeah, sometimes life is 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. But there's also this hope that God is even at work and doing something in silent places, in suffering. And, a lot of times people were leaving Jesus' ministry, like his ministry would shrink, and yet he believed that God was still at work, or he's dying, and we believe that he's still using the horrible things for the good. So I think having a proper understanding that God is even at work in the stuff that doesn't seem to matter.
And that's tricky, I think, because I would say the three of us really probably haven't had like too much abnormal suffering, like, okay, lose a parent. Okay. But this is just kind of like the natural order of things where this is a normal sort of grief type thing. There are people who have really, had really traumatic things. So, I guess I just try to put it in perspective of like, man, I really haven't had it like that bad, and so it's maybe easier for me to find meaning and purpose and gratitude and things like that. Like I pray I'm not tested that way. I don't want to be tested in that way.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't want
the tax bill.
Yeah, stick with the tax. I'm like, you can have your tax bill and your stagnation, and I will get frustrated at things on a daily basis.
Everybody.
Now, we don't ask for, and Viktor Frankl would talk about that a lot. He's like, don't ask for suffering. You're not a masochist. Like, don't look for it. It'll come.
No, I'm asking for not. I'm asking for nothing. No, thank you.
I know. So no one has to look for it. It's coming, and stuff come. Maybe not for you two. Everyone else will have issues, but you'll be fine. But I've also seen, man, God does incredible things in the midst of it too. Mm-hmm. I can tell his story because he's told me, go ahead. He was just in here, friend Todd. He's a successful orthopedic surgeon, 57 years old. He's got maybe eight more years of doing what he's doing. He's doing 8-10 surgeries a day, and he goes he goes for a dental exam, and he's got high blood pressure. Like, that's weird. He finds out like his kidneys are working harder because he's got a tumor that's eclipsing his kidney, and got stage 4 cancer, and now everything goes away. He walks out of his office, never goes back, doesn't end his career the way he wanted to. He's managing medications now for the last 3 years. When they've diagnosed him with that, you have a couple days, and they thought maybe you have 6 months. And that was like 3 years ago, I think now. But it's amazing. He's wondering, what's my purpose? He asks that a lot. And the clarity of, there's a couple people in my life that I have this unique opportunity to reach. Mm. And it just clarifies what he can do now. The suffering has limited. He can't be a surgeon. He can't go everywhere. He can't do everything, but he can suffer well, and give an example to this handful of people that he really wants to see who God is through it. Now, you wouldn't ask that. You don't plan that. You don't look for that. But you have a choice. And I think that's the cool thing that Viktor Frankl said. You have a choice when you face everything. You can either respond with your pity party or say it's pointless, or you can say, I'm going to do this well. And I'm always encouraged by people who do it well. Yeah. But stick with your tax bill,
It's easier. It's probably much easier.
Now, so I do have a little thing here that if you wanted, we could maybe do it real quick here. So the tool I kind of designed to help people think about this is called a last day lens. And so on the first panel, you have a box that I would say right in there. And if you wanted to, I have some pens here. The normal crap that happens on a day, like the good and the bad. So,
so in box 1, we're
just a normal day. What happened
stuff.
today? and so I put down in the my example would be, my son vomited before school. He's going to stay home late school because there's an accident on the freeway. My students came to school without. I'm talking about a teacher here. Without their lunch, they threw a temper tantrum. Their home is filled with trauma and chaos. But I love to teach. I wonder if my students are really growing and learning. So that's a normal day for a teacher. Like, sometimes they learn some things. There's also kids that don't bring their lunch to school. They don't bring their homework. So this mixed bag of every day. You have a headache. You're tired. You really like what you're doing. You're helping somebody. So just a normal day. Box 2 is kind of this idea of a lens that you can look at that same day what is that day going to be like on the last day? And so maybe it's back to your point of like, I don't know, what is it going to be like without the drama? Well, that's kind of what you draw. And 3 is, what would that day look like in the renewed world? So if you want to do it, Matt's already getting, you want to try it out, and you're done.
Box 1 for me, cooking dinner. I said it before, I just really hate it.
Yeah.
I hate planning it. They somehow they need to eat every night. I don't understand it. So I guess in heaven for me, my last day lens would include a personal chef.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to cook.
Right.
Do I have to do things that I don't want to do in heaven? Am I going to have to cook?
In heaven, maybe you'll like it though.
Why would I ever like that?
I can't conceive that. I can't picture a world where I would like to do
this. Magical place.
And I can't picture. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, are we? With that last day lens, like, are the things that?
Well, it's interesting when when Isaiah sees the renewed world in Isaiah 27. This is your picture here. This is for you. The last day lens for you, Annie.
Personal chef.
Let's look at this. I'm gonna basically guess who's gonna be your personal chef. Watch this. I think it's Isaiah 25. All right.
And again,
yes,
by the way, so stupid to complain about. Okay, but yes.
Renewed world. On this mountain, the Lord Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all the peoples. A banquet of aged wine.
Oh,
the best of wheat, the best of meats, and the best of wines. On this mountain, he will destroy the shroud that enfolds all people, the sheet that covers the nations. He will swallow up death forever. The sovereign Lord will wipe away the tears from all faces. He will remove this disgrace from his people, from all the earth. The Lord has spoken. So he is going to prepare the meal.
Snap. Okay.
So what you're saying is, no vegans will be in heaven.
No vegans. It's not going to make it.
People that abstain from alcohol.
Yeah. Well, you'll have meat, but
yeah. So.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to take that with complete literal.
Yeah, that's good. I think so. Why not?
Yeah.
So this is what the prophets did. They were able to see into the future and look at their current circumstances. Because Isaiah, again, in Isaiah 65, this is the picture 65. He gives this picture of what he sees. Come on now. There we go. In the new heavens and new earth. So, yeah. See, I will create a new heavens and new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. But be glad and rejoice at what I will create. I will rejoice over Jerusalem. I'll take delight in my people. The sound of weeping and crying will be heard in no more. Never again will there be an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not live out his years. If a person could die at 100, they'd be thought as a mere child. The one who fails to reach 100 will be considered a curse. So, like, if this could happen, if a person wouldn't reach 100, they would be considered, somebody who died as a child. They will build houses and dwell in them. They will plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They will no longer build houses and others live in them, and plant and others eat. For as the days of the tree, so will the days of my people. So why would that be encouraging for the people? Because in Isaiah's day, they would build a house, and then the Babylonians would come in and ransack it. They'd plant a vineyard, and you need 3 years before you really get a good cluster of grapes, and then a while for the grapes to ferment and to make good wine. But they would never get past the first harvest because another group would come in and ransack it. And so their picture of what Isaiah could see in the future is like, your last day lens is, all right, you're finally going to be able to finish the work. And I think you're finally going to be able to build your house and not need to put a locks on it and not protect it. And you're going to live in it, and you're going to be able to have a vineyard, and you'll finally be able to make that wine. So that's the kind of the picture. So I think that can give us encouragement that, because there's all things, we have goals at church and our life, and we kind of get there, but I don't know. Don't you feel like all your goals or the things you dream about, things you wish like you almost get there, like you never fully get there?
Yeah.
And so I think that picture of keep having goals, keep trying to get better, keep growing your team and teaching people and growing the church. But if everything seems just a little bit out of reach, it's because you're not there yet.
Right.
But those goals will be reached and those things will be fulfilled in the life to come. And I think it's okay to think in these very earthy, material, physical ways to look at this, that God is going to prepare the meal and it's going to be good. And, you know, so I don't know. I think that can give you that hope that, like, don't give up on the good things you're doing and don't be disappointed when it doesn't fully, you know, it isn't fulfilled to the ultimate, or it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want it to. It doesn't mean you should give up. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals. It just means you're not there yet. And so I think that helps you live in that tension. So that's what I wanted with this tool, was to give you a hopeful vision of the future. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Agreed. Well, it's like, I think it just helps thinking about it and put it in perspective.
Yeah. What I think what the prophets and what God's word wants you to get away from is, like, either don't try because life's hard and blah, 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 or think that you're able to fully reach everything right now and that you're able to fully have utopia here and then I think people get really disillusioned and then they give up on life in general, you know, like, or how many people got to the top of their industry and then realized it wasn't everything, right? And got really depressed. So, yeah. So, yeah, then I have this question here, you know, what happens internally when you look at your day through the last day lens? Like, when you try to look at it through this perspective, and how does that perspective bring hope and meaning to your current struggles? Is there any small actions you can take to align your inner life and your surroundings with that last day lens? Like, is there anything you can do to create more of that heavenly perspective right now for people, you know? So I don't know, any of those questions prompt any answers from you?
No, I think that's just a reminder to be more patient and, like, to not get frustrated at things.
Yeah. Like the bills, the taxes.
The crooks, the thieves, the scoundrels. Yeah.
For me, it's like, it's okay to let, like, I think I'm in the part of my life where I think about my yard now. And it's like, I never can get all the weeds. I never can get it perfectly. And if I wanted to, I'd have to put all sorts of horrible pesticides on my lawn, which would give my dog cancer and all that stuff, you know. So there's always something to do, and it never seems to be exactly the way I want it to be, but you don't have to be frustrated. It's just a picture of what's going to ultimately be like in the world to come, and it's going to get there. But don't give up. So, yeah, keeps you moving. For me too, I want to help people with this, and I really want to turn this into a book. I really want to help people not give up. That, for me, that's the biggest. That's the thing that makes me the saddest, is when I see people with all this talent, all this ability, but they go through a rough time, or for whatever reason, they look at things from a bad lens, and they don't live out their life. I don't know. For me, that's the saddest thing. You guys know people like that, or?
Yeah.
I think so. I say in my age group, sort of the people I know, it feels like there's a lot of, like, just like stagnation, and you're just kind of confused because a lot of my friends are not married, they don't have families, and there's not that, like, immediate sense of purpose.
Yep.
So you're kind of just, like, wandering. I think there's a lot of that, and I feel that a lot of the time too. Just go, like, what is this leading towards? Like, what am I doing here?
Yep. I think that is, like, the question for this generation. I just wrote a post on that, where I think maybe after World War II, people are asking moral questions like, how could God allow all this suffering in the world? And then maybe in the 60s, 70s, when you have all these technological advances and all these things, like into the 90s, people were asking more, like, scientific questions, like, did this really happen? Is there really a God? What's the evidence? And I feel like today people aren't really asking moral questions or scientific questions. They're asking those meaning questions like, what am I doing here? When AI is doing everything I could do anyways,
right?
When my phone is distracting me half of my day anyways, where am I headed and what does it matter? And I think that's a big question right now. And if we can answer that question for people or help people answer that question, not only do I think we can help them live a more fulfilled life, I think we can help them come back to God, because I think meaning questions lead to ultimate meaning questions like, well, who created me? Who designed me? What does he want for me? So I think this is the new apologetic. I think this is the questions that people have today that they didn't have as much in the past. I don't know if you guys think that's true, or is that just me?
No, I think so. I see it reflected a lot in music, popular music right now too. That whole, so there's a lot of those themes from, younger people and that generation. Yeah. Just songs that are coming out that are carrying on about anxiety and I'm messy and
it's an internal battle.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are really just,
what was I made for? That's the Barbie anthem.
I thought actually that song came to my mind yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep. What was I made for?
The movie was terrible, by the way. Anyone listening who has not seen the Barbie movie, don't.
You should see it. It's fun.
No.
I think a reason why these questions have come to the forefront, Frankl talked about this like 100 years ago, like we used to have institutions that would give us answers to that. And we used to have traditions that would give us answer to that. Now we don't believe in any institutions anymore, religious, governmental, whatever. And that's like prophetic, because that's crumbled even more in the last minute, And then we don't have traditions. That traditions used to tell us, who are we? What are we made for? Where do we fit in the world? And we don't have those anymore. And so either we have to figure this all on our own, and that's kind of hard to figure out, or there are loud voices or controlling people who are forcing us to try to do what they want us to do, to control us. So I think it is the question and I think the answer, and this is why Frankl focused so much on the moment by moment, is I think that's the only thing you can do right now is, how can I live a meaningful moment? How can I respond to the situation? And then trust that God has got the big questions taken care of. So I don't think we're going to be able to get our institutions to be good anymore or get traditions back, but I do think we can help people serve one another in love. And I think people are also disillusioned, like they thought they were part of these big social justice movements, or they thought they were going to find meaning in all this stuff, and all that has left people wanting. That hasn't panned out either.
And they're hungry for it, right? Because they're participating in it, and they're searching for, and they're, going to the marches, and they're, doing all the protests and stuff, which, sure, good. That's good. Yeah. But like, that seems to be like, there's all this pent up energy and like, that they're doing these things and
has it helped?
Things go away. Does it help? Is anything changing?
Right.
You're just kind
and
of
a lot of then you realize that half of the people there are paid protesters that don't even know what's going on with these different, so then you're like, what know. So I think that's why, if we can help people say there is a real God, he does have a plan for your life. He's given you good things to do today. Be open to his prompting. Respond to the opportunities that you have in love. You don't know who he's put in your life and who you can help. And he's given you unique talents and abilities to put to use. And he's going to ask you for an accounting at the end. And if you respond, he's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. Now it's all covered in grace. It's all covered in God's love, but he does want you to respond and be faithful. And that gives us, and Frankl would say, the ticking clock of death actually gives you a sense of urgency. Like, it's not forever. I think that's something I'm running into now. I'm like realizing, like, all right, Shelby's out of high school. With all of our kids, like, you just have this
How
limited.
could that be? You're 25. That's what I say. How could that be? I'm only 25. I don't know. How do I have an 18-year-old? It doesn't make sense.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But that ticking clock hopefully gives some sense of urgency that you only have so many moments with these people. So how can you make the most of them? Yeah. So I don't know. I think this is really important. I think now, how do you help people in a very concrete way? For me, I can get way too deep. How do I just help people practically and make this? Because how do you make this a quick sell? I guess I don't know how else to say it. Have a podcast. I guess
that's for next week.
Yeah, sounds good.
We're talking about.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, cool.